Hello and welcome to the Cannon Sports Podcast. I am your host, Ryan from Cannon Sports, and joining me today live from the campus of Santa Margarita Catholic High School in Orange County, California, we have head girls basketball coach Seyram Bell. Coach Bell,
hello.
Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So Coach Bell, you've been here at Santa Margarita since 2020, and your team is currently 8-0 and ranked number 4 in the state of California. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No problem. So let's start from the start. Coach, where are you from?
I am from Sylmar, California.
Sylmar?
Yes, born and raised.
Okay. Now, when you were growing up, what sports did you play?
Ironically, I started out in dance. My family's from Ghana, and so my grandparents have a music and dance company. And so I used to go on the weekends with my grandparents and dance. And then my older brother and my younger brother started basketball. And so I kind of started watching, and I was like, I want to play too. So I got thrown in, and I grew up playing basketball. And then I did track in high school. So
okay. Now, at what point did you decide basketball was going to be your sport? You know, because I grew up playing a little bit of everything, and then I just never had like one sport that I was like, I'm good at this. So I just kind of played everything until high school was over. And then I was like, that's my athletic career.
I think once I started playing travel ball in middle school, I connected with a good group of kids that are girls that I'm still actually friends with. And I think they were the ones that kind of helped me like stick with basketball just because we were all invested together. One of my really good friends, her dad was my coach. And so like they were always like, okay, let's go to the gym, get some extra shots up. So I just was like, without me knowing, I was invested in basketball, and I just stuck with it.
Now, what was your position when you were a player?
When I was young or in college?
I guess we'll start with when you were young, and then we'll get to college when we get to college.
When I was young, I was a post because I was taller than everybody. And then when I got to high school, my high school coach started to morph me more into a guard. And then when I went to college, my college coach was like, you're going to play shooting guard and point guard, which I wasn't exactly a fan of the point guard position. But, so I played guard. Okay.
Now, when you went to high school and you went to Sylmar High School, okay, so what was your experience like playing high school ball?
It was a lot of fun. And that's why here at Santa Margarita, I always encourage the girls, like, listen, there's nothing like high school basketball. So, like, you just got to make the most of it. It's so much fun. Even though when they're probably running sprints, they don't think so. But I just tell them, like, you never get a time like this, an opportunity to play in a high school environment. And I really enjoyed it. I made, like I said, a lot of my really close friends are my friends to this day. And I met them in high school or prior to. But it was just, I just enjoyed the opportunity. I had a really good coach. And because of her and my teammates, I was able to get recruited and play in college. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about playing for a high school, I think we're about the same age. And I feel like something that is present now that wasn't necessarily present. I know when I was a kid, there was like NJB and stuff. But I think with the formation of AAU and kind of the popularization of AAU, it seems like a lot of kids are more focused on AAU than their high school season. What do you think playing for your school gives you that maybe an AAU team can't?
I think you get that bond you get to build with other girls for that 4 years or the duration of the time you're at that high school. With club, it's a little different just because there's people coming and going more frequently. And high school is different because you spend a big chunk of your day with your classmates. You go to class and then you see your teammates in passing. In fact, it just happened. My students are currently taking finals, and in between, they saw each other, so they kind of congregated together, and we have this thing where we always wish each other happy game day. So, like, they got to do that in passing, where you don't have that same luxury while playing on a club because everyone's coming from so many different areas. Club is great, but at the same time, it's just a different environment when you're at the high school level.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, at Sylmar High School, I have it down that you were a 2-time league MVP. Awesome. And then, as you said earlier, you were recruited to play at UC Riverside. So what was, coming out of high school, what was the recruitment process like for you, and what ultimately led you to decide on UC Riverside?
So I actually had a very unique recruiting process. I did play club, and so I was getting a lot of interest while I was on a club team. And it just so happened, as I was going into my senior year, I had a lot of college interest. And going into my senior year, I had a plan with one of my really good friends that we were going to go to college together. And so in our eyes, it sounded like a great plan, but from like a college coach's perspective, like it works a little differently. And so she went on to one college, and at the time they had already filled the position I was going to be in. And so I essentially like opened up my recruitment again. And I didn't end up signing until later in the spring. So I didn't sign in the traditional fall signing period, but I ended up signing in the spring. And so some people were showing interest, and a lot of schools on the East Coast, and my parents were the cord was very short. They were like, no, you got to stay close. And then UC Riverside just popped up, and they showed a lot of interest, and they were, and not necessarily like interested in me only as an athlete, they were interested in me academically as a student. And so they really stayed true to the student athlete concept. And we connected with the coach, and that's where I ended up going. But there was a lot of other schools too that were recruiting me, so that process was fun, going on official visits and all that. Yeah, so that was cool.
Awesome. Now, when you got to UC Riverside, what did you see in the step up in competition between playing in high school and club and then playing in the NCAA?
So playing in high school, our league wasn't the toughest, and so like I didn't realize I had to think, or I didn't have to think that much, right? I could rely more on my athleticism, but then playing at the collegiate level, like you're playing against other people that are just as athletic or more athletic than you. And so you really have to think the game. And so that was like a foreign concept to me when I transitioned to college. And so my college coach really got us to understand like the concept of, taking advantage of the defenses in this alignment compared to a different formation. So that was like a real adjustment. And the type of offense that we ran, before I would run set play. So it's like you pass the ball here, you go screen there. Whereas in college, I ran a motion offense, which is such a hard concept for somebody that's like been doing like set plays all their life. So it just really taught me how to understand the game differently.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned earlier also that your coach, when you got to college, wanted you to play both the point guard and the shooting guard. What was that adjustment like for you to have the ball in your hands?
Well, I was always used to like catching and then going. And so it was different. Like I already had a live dribble, and it's like, well, I can't like pass the ball to myself and go. So that part was it took a lot of adjusting, but I found a way that worked for me. I wouldn't say I was like a traditional point guard. I was just more so like, okay, let's bring the ball up and get into the offense. And luckily, because we ran a motion offense, I was able to like maneuver through. And it wasn't just like a true traditional point guard position. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it worked.
Well, from the sound of it, you definitely got used to it. I have it down that you made the All Big West Conference honorable mention in 06 and 07, made the second team in 08, and then the first team in 09. So what did you see as kind of your progression through the 4 years of your playing career? Because that looks like a pretty steady, like honorable mention, second team, first team. I have it down that you made the all freshman team. What was that progression like for you in terms of gaining confidence and understanding of the game?
I think my freshman year, we had, I want to say 9 freshmen on the team. So the expectation was pretty low. At the time, UC Riverside wasn't like a big time contender in the Big West tournament. And so a lot of people didn't really expect much from a bunch of freshmen. And so the fact that we went out there and we kind of like showed everybody like, don't underestimate us. I think that kind of speaks to like my whole career there, where it's like each year, like the bar was raised. And so more responsibilities was like put on my plate, and I had to like step up. And I think because I was able to, like, that's why the accolades kind of like increase with my years of experience.
Absolutely. Now, on top of that, you guys at UC Riverside made the NCAA tournament. Let me see, where do I have it? In 06 and 07.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking a little bit before this. I went to the University of San Diego, and in 2008, our men's team beat Gonzaga in the WCC tournament. We went to the tournament, the NCAA tournament, and beat UConn in the first round. Big upset. I think it was like a 13-3 or something like that, 13-4 maybe. For me, as like a spectator of it, I was like, it doesn't get bigger than this. It's the NCAA tournament. It was so exciting. What is that like for you to be a part of the NCAA tournament?
It was such an awesome experience. it's kind of unfortunate that everybody can't go, but then that makes it like really exclusive because only, a select few can go. So I would always talk about like how fun it was going to the tournament, especially my first year, because like I said, nobody expected us to do that. Prior to that, I think UC Santa Barbara won like 11 years straight. So like kind of everybody thought like they were going to be the automatic bid and automatically go. And so we won the tournament, and then we won the Big West tournament, and then we had to go to the NCAA tournament. And I remember being in the restaurant, and they were doing selection Sunday, and we were all sitting down, and we were essentially the 64th team in it.
Yeah.
And our name came up, and it was like, we're playing North Carolina, who is the #1 team in the country. And I want to say their whole starting five ended up getting drafted in the WNBA. So it's not like we were just playing against nobodies. We were playing against some big time players. And so we went to Vanderbilt is where we were stationed. And this was like, prior to where it was like every team goes to a site. And there wasn't like a home team hosting it. We went to a neutral site. So we went to Vanderbilt, and it was really cool because my team didn't have a band. So during the Big West tournament, we would borrow other teams' bands. But then when we went to NCAA, they said, you have to have a band. Like, you're required or you get fined. So our athletic director, because we were the Highlanders, so we had like the Scottish bagpipes was a thing for us. So we had, I want to say it's probably like 30 to 50 people in Scottish bagpipes. They were wearing like the kilt, everything, the whole shebang. So they were our band at the NCAA tournament. So we're walking in, and people aren't really sure who UC Riverside is. Like, we're often referred to as California Riverside. So they're not sure who we are, and all of a sudden it gets dead silent. And then the Scottish bagpipes are coming in, and they're like leading us in. So it was such an awesome experience. And like to this day, like there's people, they were like, oh yeah, I played the bagpipes there. Like we run into, and in fact, there was a security guard here the other day. And he was like, yeah, I worked some of your games with you at UC Riverside. So I was like, that's really cool. But a lot of people were talking about the bagpipes when we went to the NCAA tournament. So yeah,
absolutely,
it's awesome.
And when we talk about the game, I mean, getting in as basically a 64 seed going up against North Carolina. What was that game like? Was it overwhelming, or did you guys hang?
No, we were hanging in there for a little bit. We ended up losing by 20, but that was like kind of towards the end. They just like went on a stretch and just score. But it was really cool because Ivory Lotta, who I want to say she was like one of the top drafts that year, she was the point guard, and we had to switch off into her. So it's like I'm thinking in my head, like I'm covering a WNBA player, like. But it was really cool. They were great. They competed. They didn't take it easy on us. But we just kind of went in there like, look, we have nothing to lose. Like, we've already shown, like, we've shown the world we've done the impossible, essentially, for our program. So we just went out there and we played hard. And to this day, we still talk about it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, after having that experience your freshman year, what was it like in 2007 then going back to the tournament with kind of, all right, we've been here before?
Yeah. It was definitely a little more challenging just because the target on our back got bigger. So people were like, oh, we're not going to just like sleep on UC Riverside. So we had a really good season. I think that was one of our most winningest seasons there. And so my coach scheduled tough for preseason. So that was in preparation for conference play. We went through, we played, we battled. Every game was a battle. And then we ended up winning again. So that was a fun little back-to-back championship. And then that time we actually played ASU in the tournament. And that one was a really close game. We were going back and forth. We played over here at the Galen Center, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And we ended up losing at the end. But yeah, it was, those 2 years were like really exciting just because, like I said, like nobody knew we were going to do any of that. And so we knew, we were like, okay, we got a taste of it. We got to get back. We got to get back to the tournament. So yeah, it was cool.
Awesome. Now, moving out of college, I have it down that you played 1 year of professional basketball in Greece for Olympiada, Larissa. How did that opportunity come about?
So my junior year at UCR, we took a forward tour to Greece. And so while we were out there, we got to play against other various teams out there. And it was really cool because we kind of went to like a different city and played a different team there. And so while I was just playing just to, like friendly game, the coaches there were kind of like taking notes of all they were like, okay, like these are juniors, so like in a year's time we can look out for them and have them come play overseas. And so that's essentially what happened. The one program that really wanted me and another teammate, they kind of like fell apart. And however, that coach stayed in contact with other coaches. And so he like kind of put the word out, like there's this guard that played at UC Riverside, want to have her play out here. And so I ended up signing with them late and went out there and played. So it was really cool because, I mean, going out there with the team, it was fun. But to live in a different culture and just like immerse myself in the Greek culture was really awesome.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, like, how was it adjusting to the European game? I think they have a different key.
Yeah.
There might be a slightly different rule set, and there's a different kind of form of play. What was that like for you?
I think the biggest difference for me was one of my strengths was having like a quick first step, and you can't do that in Europe. Like you have to dribble the ball first. So it kind of like I had to adjust my game because that was one thing that really worked for me in the States, but it's a travel if you do it out there.
So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's minor things like that. But the pace is different. And like I played more of like a finesse type of game. And over there, you kind of get a little bit of both. You could play, there's some teams that have more finesse in their strategy, and then other teams are more power. So you just kind of have to adjust according to your opponent. Another thing that was different for me was in college, there's so much structure. So you film, then from film you have practice. Practice, you have weights. Out there, it's kind of like we maybe practice. We maybe practice for like 2 hours every other day, but it was a lot of like more independent workouts and just finding a gym, getting in the gym and just shooting and working on your game. So that was like a challenge for me. So
absolutely. Now, where along the way did coaching enter your mind as something you thought, maybe this is something I want to do when my playing career is over?
So I was originally asked before I went to go play overseas, like, hey, like, well, actually, I take that back. I started coaching club when I was in college. So over the summers, before like you were allowed to work out with your coaches, I would come back home, and my high school coach wanted me to coach her club team with her. So I traveled, which was great because I got to. It was a 2-for-1. So I got to coach, and then I also got to train with my coach during the summer. And then I got to travel with them, and that was fun because like some of the girls that I ended up coaching, they ended up coming to college. It made me feel old. But so I started at that age. But then when I was leaving UC Riverside, my coach asked me, do I want to coach? And I was like, heck no. Like I want to be a professional player forever. Like coaching's not in my future. And then a year later, after I finished playing overseas, and the reason I left was just financially that team wasn't doing well. So I came back and I was like, I'm going to go back to school. The plan was to go to law school. That was the agreement I had with my parents. I play overseas and then I go to law school. Well, the coaching was presented to me again, and they were like, well, you have it in you, and like you're a leader, and just named all these like characteristics that would make me a good coach. And so I thought about it, prayed about it, and I was like, let me try coaching, and let me just do it for like a year or two. And here I am, like 12 years later, still in coaching.
Now, outside of coaching the club team, for the summers, your first experience at coaching then was as an assistant at UC Riverside. So yes. You're jumping in at essentially, almost the highest level. What was that like for you? And you were probably only, 23, 22?
Yeah, I was 22 and a half.
22 and a half. There
yes,
we go. But who's counting?
Yeah.
What was that like for you at that age to jump in and all of a sudden you're on the bench as an assistant coach in, the NCAA coaching at the collegiate level?
Yeah. It was a little bit intimidating, not going to lie. But I really had some great mentors that kind of guided me and told me like, okay, these are some things that worked for me. Like you could try it, but I think the best advice I got was like finding what works for you. You're going to have so many different tactics from so many different people. It may not work for you and how you need to strive. And so finding what my niche was, but it was a little bit intimidating just because you're going against like some impactful coaches, and everybody kind of knows the game, and it's like you want to keep up and make sure like you're not the person that doesn't know what they're talking about. Yeah. But it was, I want to say, watching film was something I had to adjust to, because I would watch it when it's already put together. But then now I'm the person putting it together. I'm the one making it make sense. And so we would always have scouting reports, and our scouting reports were maybe like 12 to 15 pages. No lie. It looked like a real full research paper. And so like one of the things we would try to do is match the video to the scouting report. And so trying to formulate it so it made sense to me and then I can deliver it to my players was a challenge I had to face. And then just, scouting the opponents and just trying to understand what it is that they're doing, so then I can relay the message to the team, like this is what to look for, this yada, yada, yada. So
absolutely. Now you worked as an assistant coach from 2010 to 2017, and then you were named an associate head coach in 2017. Worked as an associate head coach from 2017 to 2019, and then were the interim head coach in 2019. What was it like going from an assistant coach to then an associate head coach and then eventually an interim head coach at the collegiate level?
The transition from assistant to associate wasn't anything like too major. I accepted a little bit more responsibilities, but I was fortunate because I was in a position where I was already doing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. It's funny because a lot of people think, I want to say there's a meme that goes around that says like, this is what my parents think I'm doing, and this is what I'm actually doing. Yeah. So everybody just thinks like my family's like, oh, like they're watching a Laker game and they're like, oh, do you think like they should have done this? And I'm like, I am not the coach for the Lakers. Like, I do a lot more of like behind. It's more than X's and O's. It's I was in charge of academics. I was in charge of travel, equipment. Like there was like a long list of things that people don't realize that you had to do. So that transition wasn't hard. From associate head coach to interim coach, that was a really big adjustment because, and I was once told this by one of my coaches, like, it's easy when you're an assistant coach because you can make all the suggestions in the world. But then when you're the head coach, you have to make the decisions. And so there's like a lot that goes into like something as small as what time are we going to eat our pregame meal? It's like, oh, well, you can't just eat at this time. But it's like, well, you have to give them enough time to rest. You have to give them enough time to like go get treatment and this, that, and the other. So it's like every decision you make is like the most important decision when you're the head coach. And yeah, it was just like, now it's like really making sure you understand everything as assistant coach. Like each one had their own responsibilities. And now you're responsible for everybody and their responsibilities. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now in 2020, you accept the job here at Santa Margarita. What is it that made you want to come to Santa Margarita? And what was it that ultimately you decided I'm gonna take this one?
Yeah. Well, I was familiar with the school prior to me taking the job because my husband had just taken the job the year before. And I just really liked the dynamic here at SM. I like the combination of it being a faith-based school and being a high academic and athletic institution. And so like that kind of really helped with the decision. I want to say maybe the only thing that I was thinking of is at the time I was living in Riverside or Moreno Valley. So it was just kind of like, how am I supposed to get?
You got to get the fast pass.
Yes. But other than that, it was pretty easy when I was presented the opportunity because I just knew it was what I wanted, what I was looking for. And it was in an environment where I knew I could strive because of like the traditions and the fundamentals that they have here already implemented in the institution. Absolutely.
Now moving from the collegiate level into the high school level, where, at the collegiate level, you're coaching 19, 20, 21-year-olds, and now you're coaching 15 and 16-year-olds. What was that adjustment like? Was there anything that you had to maybe kind of tweak a little bit in your coaching style?
Well, the biggest adjustment was, I kid you not, was at the collegiate level, they're there. Like, they're in the dorms, their apartments down the street. So if you say there's practice, like, they're at practice. Here, I once had a kid not come to practice because they didn't make their bed. So, like, so that's, like, one adjustment and understanding, like, it's a different dynamic. And I am dealing with kids. And so it's, like, a trade-off. College, it was dealing with adults, and, like, they were there. But there's, like, a lot of differences from college to high school. One thing I really enjoy is that I am dealing with kids that are in a pivotal moment in their life. And it's like helping shape them to go on to be the future doctors and lawyers or whatever they're going to be. But it's more than just basketball at this level. Like I said, like they were just in passing One of them is like talking to me about her final and like trying to prepare for her next final. The other one is talking about like her senior college or her college application. So I'm able to have like those more intimate relationships with the kids at this level. Whereas in college, they've kind of already like, they already know who they are, and like they come to practice, they leave, and they hang out, great. If not, it's, no hard feelings. But here they like really want to be connected, and we really like honor like the family environment.
Absolutely. And speaking to that, I mean, speaking of like at the high school level, how it's about more than just basketball. What is it that you think high school sports gives to kids that they can take with them into the next steps of their lives, regardless of whether it's in that sport or not?
Yep.
And what are you kind of hoping that you can kind of instill in your players that maybe transcends the sport?
Yeah. I'm always preaching with my team, like, do the intangibles. I shouldn't have to ask you to go hard. And that's like in everything. We shouldn't get to a place where we're looking back at our academic work and we're like, oh, we shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like, just do it right the first time, and then, it would save a lot of stress. And so I try to emphasize those kinds of things because they're going to use it outside of basketball. They're going to use it for the rest of their life. And there's maybe a handful of girls in my program that want to go on and play at the next level, but the rest of them, they're just playing now, and then that's it. They're going on, and like I said, they're going to be lawyers, doctors, engineers. And so I just want them to take like the values that we have in our program, and that's, work hard, do what you're supposed to do, and then if you do what you're supposed to do, the rest of us can, like, as a unit, we'll be more impactful, we'll be stronger, we'll be better, because everybody's doing what makes them good. And understanding, like, I may be a better three-point shooter, and you might be a better person that drives to the basket. So we're not gonna role reverse, because that's not my strength and that's not yours. So we gotta understand what makes each of us good, and then like do it well.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to what's on the court, in only your second season, 8-0 and number 4 in the state, it's still early on in the season, but a very good start to the season. What has been kind of the culture, I guess, that you brought with you that's been leading to some really early success?
Yeah, I think one thing I also try to emphasize is, like, embracing the adversity. Last year, although that was my first year, last year was a little bit of a wonky year. Not a little bit, a lot. Yeah. And so it was just like, listen, we can't control what else is happening, but we can control us, like our effort, what it is that we're supposed to be doing. And so just trying to like roll that over to this year, like, okay, last year it was what it was. It was a learning experience for us, but we just got to keep moving forward one step at a time. And so like doing what it is that we need to do, controlling what we can control, and that's just kind of been like our our motivation for each game.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned a little bit ago that your husband, Justin Bell, got here a year before you. He's the coach of the boys basketball team. Now you're the coach of the girls basketball team, and you had said before we started the show that you both coached at UC Riverside. What's the competition like there between the two teams and between you guys when you get home?
That is funny. We there's actually no like real competition between us. We actually have three little girls, 5, 3, and 5 months. So they kind of take up all the conversation at home. Every now and then we'll squeeze in some dialogue about basketball, but it's more so like we're both lifetime learners, and so we're always trying to find ways to make our teams better and for us to grow as coaches. So like we'll bounce ideas off of each other, or just say like, hey, I was working on this drill and I want to tweak it. Like, what do you suggest, or vice versa. After games, we obviously talk about the games, like, oh, how did you guys do? Like, things like that. But no real true top competition in terms of like our games. We do compete when we play out other games like Jenga, or we have Papa Shot in the backyard. So he beat me one time. That's it. It's the only recognition I'll give him. But yeah, that's our competition.
Awesome, Ed. What a blessing to have like two coaches. Yeah. You guys can bounce ideas off each other like that.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, as we wind down, there's one question that I like to ask everybody that comes on the show, which is, for you in your life, what has sports meant for you, and what has sports done for you?
I think one of my coaches said this, and I think it's held true. Basketball is just a tool, and I need to use it to advance in life. And reason being, or the message behind it is, a lot of people are like working to get an athletic scholarship, and they're just like solely thinking about just the basketball or whatever the sport is. And it's like, instead, like, yes, basketball's there and it's been great, but what are you going to do after basketball? And so like, you just want to use basketball or whatever sport to help you get to where you need to get in life, whether it's you become this pharmacist or whatever. Like, sports helps and teaches you how to work amongst a team environment, teach you how to work by yourself. It like, a lot of companies always want athletes. It's like, that's the lure. Like, athletes know how to function in different environments, and it's just been like, use it to your advantage, and don't be like a slave to the game, but like, let it like help you develop in life and get to where it is you want to get to in life. So that's kind of what sports has meant to me. And then now I'm at a position where I can help do that with somebody else. Like, the baton's been passed to me. And so like, that's kind of one of the greatest joys for coaching for me, is seeing the girls that I get to connect with and then watching them advance in their career, and like, just them develop into the person that they're going to be. And so like, I was blessed with that opportunity with the coaches I've had. So now it's my turn to share that. And that's why I do it every day. And it's a lot of fun. And I've met so many great people because of basketball. So it's like, you can't not help but share it. Like, yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, Coach Seyram Bell, Santa Margarita, 8-0, number 4 in the state. You guys have a game tonight.
We
Who you got?
Tonight. We got Segerstrom here, 6 p.m. for everyone that would like to come. Doors are open.
Awesome.
And it's raining, so come inside. The joys of being an indoor sport. Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Best of luck tonight, and best of luck with the rest of your season.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts, thank you to those of you who are watching on YouTube. If you'd like to find us, we're on youtube.com/Cannon Sports Media. If you guys want to follow us, we are on Instagram @Cannon Sports. We're on TikTok @Cannon Sports Official, and of course, cannonsports.com for all your sporting goods needs. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time.